Hey guys, Rob here with McDojoLife. Today we're going to be discussing a little problem with DK Yoo. Let's watch the video, let's break it down.
Out of curiosity, if you were to get into MMA today, if Dana White gave you a contract and you're going to fight tomorrow in MMA, let's just say, do you think you could hang and fight with some of the other guys? Like, do you watch it and say, I think I can beat that guy? Do you think about that?
So what he's saying is, first of all, he respects all MMA fighters and, what they're doing for the industry and everything. But when it comes down to it, if UFC or Dana White's willing to come up with the fight, that has an enthused audiences, he's saying that he can fight anybody.
So you think you can fight anybody? Yeah. You're that confident?
Yes, of course. Conor McGregor, he pointed him out. But
you think you can fight anybody and go up against these guys?
Yes, sir. It doesn't matter.
And you're not afraid. You would do it.
두려움 없이 할 거냐?
Oh yes, of course. I don't afraid.
Et en gros, dans la lutte, ils utilisent le sable où ils vont s'ancrer dans le sol.
The guy you just watched in that interview, his name is DK Yoo, and he has a huge social media presence. He's got tons of followers. He's taught seminars all over the world. He's even taught special forces units before. Now, with all that said, let's go ahead and get started with what he's teaching. Now, what he's teaching is something called Warfare Combat System. It's a style that he's invented based off of what he claims to be over 15 different martial arts, and there's a major issue with it. The biggest issue is the fact that he has no warfare combat experience at all. Not even one amateur fight. I mean, hell, even I posted up at least one or two of my amateur fights on here, getting my ass beat, all right? So, to not have any combat experience whatsoever, not even an amateur fight, and yet to call your system Warfare Combat System is ridiculous, and it's a lie. Imagine if you are brand new to martial arts, and you're looking for a seminar, you're typing in online, all of a sudden, Warfare Combat System pops up. All right, that sounds badass. You would probably expect the person who started it, or the person teaching you, would have some warfare or combat experience. But he doesn't have any. So it's like a blatant slap with a lie right off the bat. Now next, he claimed in this interview that he'd be willing to fight any MMA fighter, specifically in the UFC, and he called out Conor McGregor by name. Now, I've been doing this for a long time. I've been running McDojoLife now for 9 years, been in the martial arts for 23 years. I know a lot of fighters, current on the roster in UFC and retired from UFC. So I can make that happen. I also know a shit ton of promoters, so we can make this happen. So I wrote him, and here's the conversation. I'm going to paraphrase here, but you can read the whole thing there. He said, I let him know I'd be willing to arrange a fight. I wanted him to see if he'd be willing to back up his words, and he said specifically he wanted to fight in the UFC. So I asked him, why the UFC? And he said he wanted to fight at least one time in that special game. And I'm guessing he wanted to fight in the UFC for the notoriety of it all. And I let him know the truth. I was like, look, dude, you have no fight experience whatsoever. They're not just going to let you get into the UFC to fight one time, especially somebody the caliber of Conor McGregor, but I'll still set it up for you. And he asked me if I worked in MMA, and I said, you know what, dude, I know a lot of promoters and I know a lot of fighters. We can get this ball rolling. Ever since then, it's been crickets. Dead silence. He has not answered. And I know what you're thinking. Well, I'm just one guy, right? I know a lot of people, especially the guys from Fight Perfect TV, who are constantly asking him to go ahead and get on to an amateur fight. One of those guys, by the way, was already in the UFC and be willing to do that. So, just kind of wrap this up. Am I saying that DK Yoo is a complete con man? I don't know. I think he's kind of in the middle. That's why it's the hardest part. Is he a legitimate martial artist? Sure, he knows how to teach punches and kicks, but he's obviously lying to you about two things. That's all I give a shit about, are these two things, right? One, he's lying about Warfare Combat System because he has no Warfare Combat experience. It's kind of a big deal. Now, do you need those things? No, but just call it something different. That's a blatant lie. Right? The next thing is he says that he'd be willing to fight anybody in MMA, and yet every time that's tossed out at him, even with fighters in the UFC, like he claimed he wanted, he backs down every time. So, with that said, if you want to follow that dude, if you want to learn from him, go for it. Just understand those are two major things that have popped up that he's kind of backpedaled or lied about. So, I appreciate all your likes, comments, shares, subscriptions, and all of the crap. Keep the martial arts legit. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are about DK Yoo in the comment section below. So, keep the martial arts legit.